Our guest today is Kunal Bahl, who's a builder, investor, and policy shaper, and has been at the heart of India's startup revolution. He co founded Snapdeal, one of India's earliest and largest e commerce platforms. And through his VC firm Titan Capital, he has backed over 300 startups, including names we all know and use every day. Thank you, Kunal. Thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Thank you, AK, and thank you for the very warm introduction. It's a pleasure being here.
Thanks, and welcome to Angel Bold Conversations. We call it ABC. One of the things that, Kunal, we talk a lot about at Angel is about being bold. It's a company that's continued to transform itself. So, bold is a big part of our culture. You've done a ton of bold things in your life. What is bold for you? What does bold mean for you?
Actually, when you're doing bold things, they don't feel particularly bold. It's only in hindsight when they work out, people say, oh, that was a bold thing. Either you fail miserably or you succeed, handsomely. Only then do people make such claims that, oh, that was a bold move. But as someone embarking on that seemingly bold move, it is just a move. Honestly, like most business people I know, they tend to take even seemingly bold risks are extremely well calculated because you can't go through life and business just building stuff while being erratic. And so even the boldest of moves generally require a tremendous amount of planning, thoughtfulness, research, soliciting opinions, and then obviously pulling the trigger, right? That you have to do. You can't just keep thinking about it. So there are many bold things, maybe in recent times. Maybe the most recent one would have been taking Unicorns public, our software company, which we own. For the longest time, people used to tell me it's too small. Then they used to tell me, first they used to say, Indian businesses don't pay for software, right? This was 10 years ago. Indian public markets don't understand SaaS. There were all kinds of aspersions were cast on the utility of that exercise. And we decided to take it public, and it ended up becoming, at the time when it went public, the second most subscribed IPO of 2024. Albeit being a small one, but it just showed the amount of interest, and the company has continued to perform and all that post the IPO as well. But look, at each point in time, I never thought it was a bold decision. We were just doing what we were just looking at the facts and doing things in reaction or in anticipation of the facts. And then in totality, it seemed like a bold thing. But in hindsight, when we were doing it, it didn't feel like it.
Got it. So you're saying it's, it seems like bold sometimes, but it's not stupid. It's calculated. There's sort of a difference between just going in versus calculating a little bit.
Yes.
Now, your story is very interesting, Kunal. You went to Wharton for undergrad, and then you came back to India and started this iconic company, Snapdeal. Can you give us a little bit of insight into like how you thought about it, how you thought about creating it, and how Snapdeal went?
It's very topical that Microsoft, where I was working for a few months after I graduated, applied for my H-1B visa, which got rejected. So I was asked to leave the US. So obviously extremely topical over things. For a moment, I was broken, like because I had this whole plan charted out. I was going to go to the Valley. I was going to start a company or join a startup and then start a company eventually. And then suddenly in one moment, I get an email saying your H-1B visa application has been rejected. 30 days later, I'm in India. It crushed me for a second, but then I was like, but maybe I'm happy also, right? I'm going back to my country. I'll figure out what to do there. And I called up my best friend from high school, Rohit, who you know well, and we just decided to do something together. And it was not Snapdeal, it was a coupon book. That coupon book transformed into SMS coupons. This is when India had 7 or 10 million internet users, 2007. From the coupon book, it was SMS coupons. From SMS coupon, it was discount card. From discount card, it was, online coupons, which is really where Snapdeal started. And it was selling like vouchers for restaurants, spa salons, and that transformed into a marketplace for physical products. We literally just rolled from one business model to the next till the time we figured something out that started working. But I think I keep saying, like, Rohit and I have this manufacturing defect. We just don't understand the concept of failure or giving up, right? Like we just don't. We don't know what it feels like. We don't talk about it. We don't think about it. We've never experienced it. Because for us, while we may have failed at things, we are not failures. And I think if you have that mindset, you just You're like, okay, this didn't work, no problem. We'll do something else. Right.
Now, you going into the sort of your venture business a little bit. We talked a little bit about sort of your philosophy around winning and being stoic in defeats. When you pick quote unquote winners, like what do you look in them? Like how are winners different from perhaps not so much winners?
I'll give you a more scientific answer and then, a more philosophical answer first, which is I feel the best situation or the best in hindsight companies that worked out, these were ideas that founders needed themselves. They could build themselves and almost nobody thought they will work. Right. So there was something, think of it like they were contrarian and true at the same time, where there was a need and yet nobody thought there was a need, or nobody thought this business can be built, should be built. Now, more scientifically speaking, generally I've seen the three key criteria, right? If I were to look at screening criteria, one is, the quality of the team. Like, can they think of a clean slate? Do they have they demonstrated success of anything in the past in life? Could be academics, dance, music, whatever, like being in films or anything. Usually in India, it ends up being academic because the way our education system works historically, I think it's changing now. You could really only demonstrate yourself and your credibility and through academics and hence pedigree is mostly an academic pedigree versus other kinds of pedigree in India. So that is when, because I think as founders, you realize that to do anything well requires so much grit and perseverance and persistence and never say die, that you got to have done it before. And I don't want you to be doing it the first time when we are putting in money, right? You should have done it in some scale before. Second is the ability to generate unit economics, which is many times founders will say, hey, what difference does it make? Like today, I'm a 20% gross margin business, but I'll become a 60% gross margin business with economies of scale. I tell them, yes, you can become a 60% gross margin business, but guaranteed it's not going to be in the same business. It's going to be a different business because the gross margin or the unit economics of a business are the soul of the business. You can't change it and yet be in the same business. And defining that arc early, that trajectory of economics is so critical. And third, I would say is, most of the time investors are looking for large spaces, right? Like they like those large bubbles of TAM. We tend to focus on what we call laughably small TAMs, like the narrowest of the narrow sliver of a market, which large companies either will ignore knowingly or unknowingly, and a small upstart company with a stellar team, stellar insight, stellar execution, with the very finite amount of resources and time they have, are able to build consumer love in that narrow segment. And then once consumers give them that trust and lend them that credibility, then you start expanding into adjacent categories. So company after company, like Mamaearth as an example, right, started as baby mosquito repellents and shampoo, and then rest is history. Or urban companies started with one category, then rest is history, so on and so forth. Right, every company tends to usually grow like that. So I would say that's sort of the philosophical plus scientific answer to your question.
No, that's super, super helpful. And that almost sort of takes out the next question I was going to ask you. But, think about, of course, entrepreneurs you work with a lot. But I also, I myself think of myself as an entrepreneur who sort of worked in bigger companies and created products. What do you think separates people who can actually, people have good ideas and you see a team and you say, hey, it's a good idea, and being able to execute it and actually productize it and bring it out and scale it? Do you see certain patterns there and say, look, these are the kind of things I see people doing when they are able to really build from an idea and execute?
Yeah, I would say there are largely three things. I've not thought about it in that way, but three things come to mind. Obsession for consumer love, right? Because I feel that even if you got the economics right, but you didn't get consumer love right, eventually the company will decay or will get superseded by someone who maybe was okay giving up some of the economics today, but one more consumer love, customer love, right? I feel customer love sort of supersedes everything, especially in a country like ours where traditionally customers were not treated well. So when they see a service or a product that treats them well, they tend to really gravitate towards that, right? And then eventually that loyalty and retention allows you to grow your economics on a per unit or per customer level. I would say that's one. Second is almost everything in an entrepreneurial setup that you think will go wrong goes wrong, and many things you didn't think will go wrong also go wrong.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, so you need like tremendous amounts of grit, right? Like just almost a sociopathic level of grit of just saying, like I was saying earlier, that sure, this part didn't work, or this initiative didn't work, or this campaign didn't work, this product didn't work, this investor said no, this employee didn't join me, like whatever it is, right? You just keep going. You just don't stop. I think it requires a sociopathic level of commitment to the cause and grit to the whole purpose of what you're building. And third, I would say, which is totally out of anyone's control, is serendipity.
Now you started, Snapdeal, or was it called Snapdeal where you had the coupon site?
No, it was called, well, the coupon book was called Money Saver.
Right.
And Snapdeal as a coupons website started in 2010 and then pivoted to an e-commerce web marketplace in 2011-12.
Got it. So this is like more than 15 years back. Have the rules of the game changed fundamentally in terms of what you may have to do more of, whether you're building inside a big company or creating a new startup? Like what kinds of things do you see have changed?
That's a great question. I would say what has not changed. Everything has changed in the way you will build a business, right? Like everything has changed. I remember in the early days of Snapdeal, like even courier switching, like courier companies used to send us batch files at the end of the day as to where each order was. And we would upload it and send a bulk email to our.
I've done that too.
Yeah, so you know, right? Like this concept of APIs and real-time tracking was just not. So we had to build a lot of that stuff, or like payment gateway switching algorithms. Like nothing existed. Payment gateway success rates are like 60% at best. Now they're close to 90.
Well,
So
UPI wasn't there in 2015.
API was not there, right? Like the total number of internet users were 50, right? 2012. So there we used to debate, is it 50, 70 point, like all moot topics now. So everything has changed. Like, but I would say the biggest thing in my mind structurally, I think the technological changes everyone understands. When in terms of how businesses are built, should be built, can be built, has changes just how much you can achieve with how few people do, right? Like we at Snapdeal, we have crores of customers. We have 250 people, right? At Unicommerce, we process over 1 billion orders a year. We have 250 people, right? Titan, we have 300 companies. We review 5,000 companies a year. We invest in 10, 15 new companies every year. We have 10 people, right? So I feel what you can achieve if you have that efficiency mindset and a frugal mindset, you can achieve a tremendous amount now with a lot less people. Obviously, the quality of the people has to be very, very high. This was not the case 10 years ago, where you honestly had to have a lot more people focus on every problem because the problems were unwieldy and not automated. And I think we are seeing that shift, right? Obviously, in the age of AI, this is only getting further accelerated.
Talking of India and the landscape here, I think you once said India has mouth-watering opportunities and eye-watering issues. So we thought, how can we not pick on that? But instead of sort of talking about probably the eye-watering issues, what are the biggest opportunities you see in India in the next 10 years?
For the longest time, if you just take the digital economy, for the longest time, people used to say, we've been sort of fellow travelers, right, in this arc of India's digital evolution and growth, where there was a time people said, oh, why would people use internet? Then they were like, why would they get smartphones? Then they were like, but nobody uses payments. Digital payments, they don't trust, they like cash, so on and so forth, right? Like, and then the internet is too slow, and then the phone is too slow. Like every problem has continued to get solved along the way. If you just zoom out, sometimes you have to sort of widen the aperture at which you're looking at a market at and see how much of a distance and how many absolutely unsurmountable problems we seem to have overcome, going from like whatever few million internet users 15 years ago to 1 billion, right? Smartphones, 2 billion, right? Like it is unreal. Like 43% of the world's real-time transactions are in India, right? So it is incredible. And I know you played a big role in that yourself. So I'm just so optimistic about the future. The one thing that people have been saying until recently, and are still saying, is sort of the next big unlock, where each one of these has been an unlock and we move to a hard orbit after that, is the per capita GDP, right? Where the spending power is still relatively less in India. As a result, why we have all the rays all the apps, all the platforms, all the enablers, yet we don't see the size of businesses that we deserve to see.
Yep.
And that is largely driven by the per capita GDP. But now it is a it's preordained. It's a foregone conclusion that somewhere in the next 5 years, we are going to become a, you know, 6, 7,000 per capita GDP country. Right? At which point there'll be an explosion of spending. So today, 50% of Indian household income is spent on food. As an example, like analogously in the US, it's less than 10%.
Yep.
The moment this percentage starts dropping, not because people are eating less, but because income is growing, you will see the spend will start increasing on all kind of fashion, beauty, services and healthcare and whatnot, preventive healthcare, so on and so forth. Stock market trading, right? And I feel that it is going to unlock an extent of growth in our country that is unimaginable, like akin to what China saw from 2000 to 2020. Right? We are that era, despite all the excitement around India, that era is yet to come.
Yeah.
Right? So that is what makes it so exciting to be here.
Yeah, makes sense. You're saying, look, don't worry about the micro. The macro is what really is going to matter a lot, and how we execute on that makes perfect sense. But you've also, talking of India and future, you've also coined the term Indicons. There are a lot of people talk about unicorns, right? Now, unicorn is kind of odd because you're talking about a valuation, not value at times. I always feel unicorns is a very, very odd term, because I was asking somebody saying, if you reach $1 billion in revenues, what are you called?
Yeah.
No. But if you have $1 billion valuation, you're called a unicorn. So
We should be called successful.
yes, but you coined this term Indicon, which is startups that are sustainable, profitable in India. That's great. But how do we take it to the next level? Do you think, people will build companies out of India that will be like a Chat GPT or a Google, and where it's like an Indian company that goes global and everybody knows about it? And how do we build it?
Yeah, why not? I mean, the story behind this is I used to get really ticked off by these unicorn lists, right? Like I used to feel that, what is a $1 billion valuation is one wise person, seemingly wise person saying, I think you're worth $1 billion. Right? That's it. Right? It's one person. One person has to say that. It's not
There's a lead investor who's basically deciding.
That's it, right? It's not like the collective wisdom of the masses in a public market where everyone, if a company is $1 billion, like if Zomato is a 3 lakh crore company, whatever you may say, it is now a 3 lakh crore company, right? But when you're a private company and only one person says you're $1 billion, irrespective of whether you have revenues, don't have revenues, have profits, don't have profits, you have customer love, you don't have customer love, whatever, right? It is, I feel, not a great moniker or a great aspiration to have necessarily. My view is that a better measure is revenue and profits. And I often saw that when we would meet companies at the earliest stage, because we start investing at the seed stage at Titan, the only aspiration the founders seemingly had was unicorn banna, right? And I was like, what about everything that has to happen in the middle? There's a lot that has to happen in the middle, right? What is a nearer term goal, which is where you can wrap your arms around it and have some framework in a reasonable time frame to get there. And it's also important because that's how we were deciding whether to invest in something or not. We would always, Rohit and I would ask ourselves, what does it take for this product or service to get to 100 crores of revenue profitably? How much money will it take? How much time will it take? Is this the right team? Do they have the right amount of capital? That's it. And we just, years after years after years, we kept on making decisions based on that framework. And we say, might as well, when they eventually get there, they should be like rewarded or applauded, right? But how do you do that?
That makes sense. And then how do they go global? Like, is there a trick to going global?
Like a lot of VCs do say that companies should go global. Like, yeah, if they build a product that's of global value, sure, they can go global, but it's not a necessary condition for success, right? Like, in the end, if you can build a successful company focusing on the Indian market, because it's not like we are small, like if top four, top three soon, GDP market in the world, most like 1.5 billion people, billion internet users, so on and so forth. If you can build a large, enduring company, solve important problems in our country, make profits, go public, create shareholder value, then what's the rush to go global? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't build global scale businesses. Like, and there are people like Freshworks and Zoho who've done a fantastic job and have led the charge, and there'll be others behind them. But I personally am not that obsessed about it. I feel that doing it for the sake of doing it doesn't really matter. If it makes sense, then let's do it.
Yeah, you're basically saying don't get up one morning and say, I want to build a global company. You think about a customer problem, and then if it becomes global, it becomes global.
Yeah, I mean, Lenskart is a good example, right? Like they started as solving a problem in India and they saw that it was the same problem elsewhere. The same capabilities, transferred nicely across different geographies. Unicommerce as an example, right? We built the software for India where everyone said nobody will pay for software in India. And suddenly we have customers in 14 countries paying for the same exact software built for Indian customers. So I feel that if it's a little more organic, it works a lot better versus, try to push a square peg down a round hole.
No, makes sense, and that's fantastic. No, I have lots of questions lining up, but I wanted to get one question out of the way, which is probably important in the current context. AI. What do you see as the role of AI today in the businesses that you are working with, as a business as well as an individual? What kinds of things should we be thinking about with this disruption?
See, my view is like pertinent to India's role in AI. My own view is that we are and we will excel in the application layer. I know there are valiant attempts being made in the infrastructure and model layer, and I have no expertise, and also in the semiconductor layer in some ways. I don't have any expertise in those spaces, so I not not comment on those efforts. I'm sure they're very smart people with the right set of resources building there. I am more focused on the application layer because I think of it like apps on your phone. These are basically similar type of. It's a very direct analogy. AI apps are a very direct analogy, and I find that incredibly exciting. Incredibly exciting. Like our engineering talent can be very good at that. Like we are very good at this, like mouth-watering opportunities and eye-watering challenges type. Like our DNA is like that, right? As Indians, we grow up, we see friction around us, we try and solve, we pick one piece of friction, we create a product or service and solve it and monetize it. And I think that DNA will be put to great use and accelerated use as it pertains to the application layer of AI. So that's where I feel that a lot of the focus is going and should go. And that's where we can build global scale companies also out of India.
You talked about macro, and you talked about, like, India's growth, you grow with it. And therefore, I think there's a question here which says, what advice would you give the young generation of engineers to grow along with India's growth and to be successful in future? What can people do to ride this macro?
I think, look, the internet democratized access to information. AI will is democratizing access to skill, right? So, I mean, anybody who says it's not going to do that is lying or doesn't get it or is insecure themselves. So, the sooner we admit to ourselves that skill is going to get increasingly democratized and hence, for the most part, commoditized. Some skills will not be, but many skills will be, that traditionally were considered specialized. I have a sort of proclivity towards builders, right? I feel that it is never going to be the future, in the future, building is going to be so much easier than it ever has been. And whether you're an engineer or not an engineer, to be honest, beyond the point, it's not going to matter again. What's going to matter is your own, propensity, curiosity to leverage all the myriad tools that are becoming available, which are highly advanced, they're getting more advanced to build. And what I would nurture is not engineering skills. What I would nurture is curiosity and a desire to build something. Because honestly, India doesn't need more engineers working in companies. India needs more entrepreneurs. Not only is it a golden era of building in India, it has also never been as easy to build as it is now and going forward. I don't want to tell you guys quit tonight and go build. AK will kill me, but I feel as you think long term about your careers, I would say collect the necessary skills, experiences, network, learnings, mentorship, and then go build.
Well, actually, by the way, to be clear, we want people to do the right thing for themselves, and it's not about like being sticky here at Angel or otherwise. But this is super helpful, and I think I'm taking away many, many things. But what really top of mind sticks with me is just like customer focus, over and over again that you emphasized on respect for others and being ethical. There are many, many lessons, at least I'm taking away from this. Many questions still remain on the chat here, but I'll be respectful of your time and everybody else's time here. Thank you so much for being here on ABC, and we hope to maybe see you in person one of these days and host it in person.
Sounds good. Thank you, AK, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Very appreciate it.
Investments in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.